and welcome back to another episode of the Widow podcast. I have yet another wonderful lady joining me today. I'm really excited to introduce you to Julie New. Some of you may already know her, have heard of her. She's very well known in the world of grief. And has written a lovely book and does an awful lot to support people going through loss and change. Julie is a former nurse and midwife, like myself, bless her, a personal recovery coach, author, and well-being speaker. And she has come to join us today to tell us a little bit more about her own journey through loss and widowhood and what she does now to support others through their challenges in life. So, Julie, hello. Thank you so much for coming along and joining me today.
Hello, Karen, a fellow sunflower.
I know, we love our sunflowers, don't we?
Yeah, we do. We do. Yeah, I don't know if you can see mine behind me.
It's a love. I remember spotting it the first time we spoke, I think. And I was like, I need one of those. It's beautiful. So I always like to start really, Julie, with you sharing your story. And I know it's a long one. But
how long have we got?
I'm sure you're used to kind of sharing it with people, but yeah, I mean, that's a great place to start. Really, is your story.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Well, where do I start? And it's actually interesting because I don't talk about my story as much anymore. I think.
No.
So yeah, I think talking about my story today with you, it's going to be interesting for me as well, actually. So yeah, I mean, I may as well just start. I met my girl's dad when I was doing my nurse training, so a very, very long time ago.
Where was that?
Very long time ago.
Where did you do your training, Julie?
So I did my training in Cambridge at a hospital called Adam Brooks.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was kind of quite a well-known teaching hospital at the time. But interestingly, there wasn't much of a social life for student nurses, believe it or not, because obviously there's a big student population there, but actually the nursing side. So anyway, I decided I was going to try young farmers in the local vicinity, and I just met Richard there, and we really hit it off. And he'd just finished his kind of course. I think it's called an HND in agriculture, which was in Bedfordshire. Yeah, and yeah, we just hit it off, and. But he didn't actually stay in farming. He went into the police, and I think that was the beginning of us beginning to drift apart. I won't go into the ins and outs of it all, but we were together 17 years in the end. We had 2 beautiful girls, and but in the end, it was right for me to leave that marriage. And the best day of my life was the day I actually left him.
Wow.
I'll be honest with you, it really was. I remember driving away from the house, guinea pigs in this box, and I'd had to leave my dog behind, which was really awful. He did come and join us in the end, but that was really hard. And we had a huge house, but it wasn't a home anymore. It wasn't, just wasn't a home. It was just a house. So I didn't have any worries about leaving it. And yeah, I just remember leaving and just being so elated that I'd managed to do this and to give myself that opportunity, I suppose, to begin my life without all the trauma that had gone with my marriage. So yeah, and then if you fast forward to 2009, I was in February the 25th, and by that point I'd then met who was to be my second husband, Rob, at that point. he took being the girls' stepdad, and their guardian really, really seriously. And we were so happy. We were so happy. And I just remember just bouncing out the door this morning. And I think 2009, we've got mobile phones, haven't we? And I got my mobile phone started ringing, and I treble booked myself that day. I don't know how I'd done it, but I was like thinking, oh no, how am I going to do this? Because I wasn't really thinking about who was on the end of the phone when I picked the phone up. And I just got to my car, and bearing in mind, Rob was still in the house, and he wasn't feeling great. And Polly, my youngest daughter, she had glandular fever quite badly, so she'd actually been off school for about 3 months at that point. So I just left her in bed. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like you do.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was at my car, and this voice at the end of the phone said, is that Julie Jones? And I said yes, and because that was my name at the time. She said, I've got some really terrible news to tell you. She said, I'm ringing from the Royal Exeter Hospital. And I said, but I don't know anybody in Exeter. I don't, I think you might have the wrong. No, she said, no, I've definitely got the right number, and I've definitely got the right person. She said, is anybody with you? And I said, no, I'm on my own. And she said, I've just got to tell you that this really terrible news that Richard Jones has died. And it was just completely sudden. It was completely out of the blue. I was literally stood in the middle of the road, and I could just feel the tears just rolling down my cheeks. And I say it now, that day will remain the worst day of my life. I mean, something else might happen in the future, who knows, but to this point, it's the worst. It remains the worst day of my life, because I knew from that moment the impact that was going to have on our children. That I was going to have to tell them this awful news that was going to change their lives forever and ever. And I just remember stumbling about the road. Luckily there was no cars coming, because I would have probably got knocked over myself, but I landed up next door and I'd only just met her, because she was anyway, she took one look at me and said, come in, come in, tea, we need tea, because of course tea's the thing, isn't it? Let's make some tea. So she made some tea. I was still in a bit of a state, and anyway, that was basically the how that happened. And we're coming up to 13 years since that day.
Wow. So how old were the girls at that point?
So Polly had just that week turned 13.
Okay.
So that was the last day she saw her dad, was on her birthday. And she's actually got a tattoo. In fact, she won't mind me telling you this. She's got a tattoo of what her dad wrote to her in that card. And it's just on her side it's got like an angel feather sort of. Yeah.
Oh, bless her.
So yeah, she was 13 just that week, and Amy was just 16. And she was doing her GCSEs, so she'd only just turned kind of 16. And so she was at school at that day. So she'd gone to school, and so I actually stayed at this friend's house until the afternoon when my sister and my mum brought Amy home. Then I went into the house and obviously had to tell them
both. Just the worst thing that a mother has to do.
You know as well. It's just can you remember how what did you have that feeling of the girls and having to? Because
it's the first thought. Well, it was for me, because I spoke to somebody recently, and I had to kind of relive my story a little bit, in more detail. And like you say, you don't do it that often. And there was that kind of what happened when you were told, and did you wail, did you collapse, did you cry? And I said no, I very much went into a practical mode, because it's your children. You kind of think, what am I going to do, what am I going to say, how am I going to navigate this.
Mm.
Like you say, knowing that it's going to have an effect on them for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
And that's huge.
It really is. It really is. But I think in retrospect, from the get-go, you know, I I was very focused on the fact that I just wanted to get them into their adult lives, you know, healthy, healed, and happy.
Yeah.
That was my thing. And, you know, today, sitting here now, I 100% have achieved that. 100%. You know, and it's been a very, very difficult journey. And I think anybody that says it's not,
Yeah.
you know, because effectively, you know, the three of us were going on our own grief garden path. You know, we were all, because every path's unique, isn't it?
Absolutely.
To us.
Yeah.
And you know, we're all gonna, you know, encounter emotions that are gonna knock us flying every now and again, and you know, but and at different times as well, you know. So it's not just your own. I mean, I remember Rob saying to me, it's like you've lost your husband. And it genuinely was. There must have been, you know, in those early days, there must have been a deep love there, because I genuinely did feel grief. I did. I did. Yeah, if I'm completely honest.
Of course.
You know? Yeah.
But yeah, I don't. Is it possible to spend 17 years of your life with someone and have two children, and for whatever you go through, you know, that's a huge part of your life, isn't it? Where you've experienced so much together and you've created so much together, and even though you're not together as a couple anymore, there's still a future with you both in it for the children, isn't there? So you know, as much as you're not a couple, there's still a lot to share there, isn't there?
Although, well, you're absolutely right. Although I actually hadn't spoken to him for 2 years. I was very cross about something, very cross indeed.
Yeah.
But I don't regret that, you know, because something happened, and I just remember just saying, all right, drawing a line under this, you know. I can't. And actually the girls had 2 years with their dad without us, you know, in any kind of animosity.
Yeah.
You know, because I just stopped it. I just thought, no, I can't have you being like that with me anymore.
No.
So he was an amazing dad, you know.
Yes, you can't take that away from him. So how did you deal with, I mean, did that bring up guilt for you in your grief? You were happy with the choices that you'd made, and you didn't sort of give yourself that hard time?
100%. Yeah. No, not at all.
Yeah.
No, I'd worked through a lot of stuff. So no.
So were you a grief coach at this point, or were you still nursing?
Yes, well, no, I wasn't a grief coach. I'm not a grief coach, actually. I help people after difficult and sometimes traumatic life change. So but I help them when they are ready. They've done that work on the path behind them, and they're just ready then to get really stable on their stepping stone before they go into the next chapter. So, and I've been doing that. I was doing that from about 2006, when I started Changes Forever, my business, my work. So yeah, and I was going really well, Karen. It was going so well.
Yes.
It was like, I just had this amazing event, because the kind of people that I tend to work with are really lovely. They're kind, they're caring, they're compassionate, they have a deep empathy for others. They're very sensitive people. And with that, we feel things very deeply. So it often takes us that little bit longer, I think, to kind of get back on an even keel again. And it's quite easy if you don't do the work, isn't it, to kind of keep going around in a circle and going back into therapeutic work. Whereas actually it's you know, and I guess if I think about it, all of the work, actually there's an element of grief that somebody's gone through, whether it's a divorce, a separation, a bereavement, illness, disability. you know, whatever it is. So I suppose you could call me a grief coach, but people tend to generally think about grief as being
through death,
somebody's died,
yeah.
you know, whereas actually it's not always the case. It, you know, it can be the death of a, you know, it could be the death of a, you know, marriage, or you know, whatever. Where was I going with that?
I love it. You're just like me. You're kind of like, what was I? Where was I taking this?
What was I actually saying then? Yeah.
I was saying that did obviously you weren't a grief coach, but did your work in that area, did that help you through the loss at that time? No,
I don't think it did, because I had to, well, in what respect do you mean?
Just, I guess,
carrying on working, or
having the tools, I suppose, to support yourself.
Oh yes,
through it.
Oh no, 100%. Yeah, 100%. And I've always been a great believer that, you know, if you know, finding the right support is really important. So so I think at the time I found this. I'd had some counselling with this amazing counsellor called Linda Danvers, who I don't know how many people I've recommended to Linda over the years, but anyway, she's just a marvel. And I think I rang her, and I think I went and had a couple of hours with her, and you know, that sort of thing. And yeah, I think, and I think as well, had I at that point? Yeah, I had. I'd started thinking about life as being a bit like a garden, and you know, so I'd started to think about, actually we have needs, don't we? What do I need at this point? And I did give myself.
Well, even asking yourself that question, I think is quite powerful, isn't it? Because I think it's not a question we ask ourselves enough. So no. I think that just shows that there was something within you that wanted you wanted to nurture yourself through it by sort of exploring what you needed.
Yeah, I think with Richard's death, I think maybe less so, because I felt very responsible for the girls, and his parents. Actually, they didn't cope very well. His partner, who went on to be a chief inspector actually in the police, she did really well. She gave the girls the option. I'd never met her before he died, so so that was really nice, because she was really fantastic. But I actually had to stop working for about a year. I literally had to stop, because I couldn't have done my work. I couldn't. And also I just had to be there for the girls, you know. And yeah, but yeah, I guess, yeah, I would say probably, you know, my philosophy and my ethos, and you know, I think I do walk my talk.
Yes. And do you think that was reflected to, you know, within the girls, and how they then sort of navigated their grief for their dad? Do you think they sort of learned and drew from your strength, your wisdom?
Oh yeah, I mean, they both say that now. I think I gave them the opportunity to be however they needed to be, and I got them the support and the help that they needed at that point in time. There's a really good blog actually on my website called Nigel, and that would give, if anybody wants to go and look at that, it's all about the little dog that I got for Polly when she was 18. And really up until that point, she was, you know, what the words I can use, she was so angry for so long, you know. As we know, anger can be an emotion that comes up, and it can come out of the blue, it can come out of nowhere. And you know, I had things lobbed at me on a regular basis. I had, you know, all sorts. She was, and I suppose, yes, I did, and I did pull on my own analogy, in that I put this garden fence around her, and I slowly saw that little girl come back. But if you know, I look at you hear about stabbings and all sorts of things in, you know, across the world, and I just think usually there's some kind of root cause to violence, and in young adults, and I think it's often the root is something bad that's happened to them. And I think that's the only reason that Polly didn't land up in big trouble. I mean, I remember one of Richard's colleagues turning up on the doorstep in, police. And, it's like, oh my, I won't tell you what I said, but it's like, really?
Oh.
Really?
Oh.
This is really bad. So yeah, so very, very distracted for a long time with her. Amy, not so much. Amy's, I would say, is probably more like me. She's more easygoing, she's more laid back, she's more open about her emotions.
Okay.
I think it's often the people who are not open about that, they feel expressing their emotions difficult.
Yeah.
They're the ones that we have to watch, and they're the ones that often need a little bit more support. But often don't get it, because they push it away, and they just bury their heads, and but now you should see her now. My goodness me, she's just she's an auntie now as well.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah, she loves her being an auntie.
Oh, bless you.
Yeah.
and she's still got Nigel.
Yeah, we've still got Nigel. Yeah.
And she didn't. She's you got Nigel.
We've got Nigel.
You've got Nigel.
Of course. Yeah. Oh, it's so funny. She'll ring up and she'll say, "Can I come and get him?"
Oh,
and I'm like, "Yeah, come and get him.
Loves it.
Come and get him." Yeah, because she works full time, so we'll let her off, and we both work here. So.
Yeah, so that's easy. So, from your experience, then obviously you have two teenagers when their dad died. What kind of advice would you give someone who's trying to maybe support a grieving child that's maybe showing anger, holding it in, doesn't maybe know how to express their emotions or deal with the loss? Is there, just kind of maybe one or two things that you kind of go, I know you can't solve all their problems, but just that really sort of called out to you of this kind of is what's really needed in these moments?
I think you have to be very honest with them. Personally, I would tell Polly that I would always love her, and I think they always need to know that they're loved no matter what they do. That's really, really important. But I used to say to her sometimes, I absolutely love you, but I don't like you right now. And I think that, and she says that occasionally now. She says, "I can't believe you," but actually they still need to know that they've overstepped a boundary or they've overstepped a mark, because if they're just left free rein, and actually, again, the watering you analogy is so important for anybody that's listening, and you're experiencing that, because with a child, because it's draining. Literally the bottom of your watering can's just like drain, because if your child's unhappy and your child's not firing on all cylinders, so you won't be either, because it's just a fact, isn't it? So really basic watering of you, eat, sleep, breathe, repeat, bit of exercise if you can, that type of thing, just to keep yourself going, because it can be constant and it can go on for a long, long time. I had years of it. And so anybody that listening that has that, I hope that I'm giving some hope that eventually it's worth it. It's worth sticking in there, and it's worth kind of keeping going, because they come out okay in the end.
Yeah,
generally.
Yeah, yes, you're right. There's no hard and fast rule, is there? And it's different for everyone, and we all do this in our own unique way.
But yeah, I think I love you, so always tell them that they're loved, because they need to know that, because often it's because they don't feel good about themselves anymore. They feel that they're just feeling so awful within themselves. The other thing that I think is really, really key is to find the right support. So whether that's a peer support group, or in Polly's case, I had a very specialist psychotherapist in London see her for a period of time. And then in her school, she actually had a counsellor for almost 3 years. And then when she left school, she carried on seeing her every now and again. So I think as long as they've got an outlet, because it might not be you that they want to talk, they can talk to. I think that's the point. You know, it's finding them an outlet, somebody that they can speak to in confidence, and you know, I always used to make Polly feel as though she didn't have to tell me everything. I didn't need to know everything. Didn't need to know. I'm just there, you know, to, and I suppose the third thing would be, you know, just provide a safe environment for them, you know, and hide the remote control.
Yeah. So they can't throw it at you.
That was her weapon of choice. It's really funny actually. I did a talk once for the charity Break. I don't know if you've heard of.
I have heard of them, yes.
Yeah, they've got an arm called Sudden, and so it was about bereavement in children, and it was just after the Ariana Grande concert, and they asked me if I'd do the inspirational bit of telling my girl's story. And I thought, so I was like going around sort of, because before any kind of talk, I always go around picking stuff up and thinking, I'll take that with me, and I just happened upon this, the very last remote control I ever bought that was still in its pack, and I took it with me, and I used it as a bit of an example.
Love it.
Yeah. So, and learn to duck. Yeah.
Quickly.
Yeah.
It's hard, isn't it? But it sounds like you've given them the love and the support they needed, and I think, you know, I would agree with what you're saying. I think children need to feel safe and loved, and it's reminding them of that, isn't it? That
even when they're being horrible.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly.
Oh, I've just had a memory.
Oh,
Polly, I'm just trying to. Oh, that's right. Because of course I told you, didn't I? She'd been quite poorly with glandular fever, which then went into ME. And then she also, both of my girls actually now have been diagnosed with the same heart condition as their dad.
Wow.
So she'd had quite a lot going on, but she decided she was going to take herself off to Juicy Oasis in Portugal. And she's been 5 times now to this place. And Neil and I, must be about, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. She'd gone off to Juicy, as she calls it, and we needed to do something with her bedroom. We were going to redecorate it for her while she was away, and we were going to put nice new bedding on and, you know, do different things. And do you know what we found under her bed? Her dad's washing powder.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Bless her. So that she, what was she using it for the scent?
Don't know. Probably, yeah. Although there was no scent left, I don't think, at that point. But so we actually put, then there was a couple of other bits as well, and we just landed up, we put them somewhere safe for her. And then there was a poem that she'd copied out, and so we've had that framed for her, and we had pictures of her dad framed, and so it was more for her something that she could just feel comfortable with and happy with. So yeah.
Oh,
yeah, but yeah, it just came into my head. And the other thing that we got, and again, you know, maybe another not top tip, but you know, we're all so different. And Amy never wanted any jewelry, but Polly did. And for her 21st birthday, so for her 18th, I got her Nigel. And then for her 21st, I got her this beautiful ashes into glass, you know, pendant, which was set in white gold. And it was, you know, I always know if she's feeling a little bit dodgy because she wears it. And in fact, as her sister was coming up to having her baby, she was wearing it a lot.
Oh, bless her.
And I just knew that
it was bringing her some comfort.
Yeah.
And it's funny, isn't it? We all need something, I think, don't we, that does that for us. And again, it's different for us all. But you know, having ashes turned into something that they can have on them can bring a lot of comfort, can't it? And that connection, I suppose, feeling that they've got them with them.
Yeah.
So you kind of touched on the fact that you'd met Rob. So obviously this had happened with Richard. You'd taken some time off work and you were now with Rob. So tell us about Rob.
Oh my goodness. Oh gosh. Well, if anybody wants to hear our love story, it's actually in my first book, which is called Who Are the Flowers in Your Garden? And he was just a complete inspiration. I mean, to anybody that met him. He had a motorsport accident when he was 32. Just came off his bike midair, and the bike came and snapped him in two. So when I met him 10 years later, he was already paralysed from mid-chest. But I never saw the chair, actually. I never saw it because he was just such a, I don't know, he was just the loveliest person. He really was. He was just hilarious, and we just laughed even on our really bad days. And we had some not bad days as in bad days, but as in his health in the last sort of 4 years we were together. We still laughed. I mean, all the nurses used to say, you know, and in fact when he passed away, they said, you know, what an inspiration we were as a couple, because we just used to, I don't know, I used to he went into hospital in the July of 2012, and he was in for, well, he died on the November the 8th, and I was there every day with him, and I'd go home every day as well, because of course I had the girls, and and at that point, actually, I remember thinking, I have to take good care of myself here. You know, I'd go home, I'd have a shower, I'd have perhaps sleep for an hour, and then I'd go back again. But yeah, that very last kind of even the very last day, actually, I don't think we laughed on the last day, because he wasn't particularly conscious at that point, but even the professor on the Monday when they had to stop dialysis, he was sobbing, and I was having to support him because everybody loved him so much. So yeah, he was a really special guy, and I wouldn't change for a minute the time that we had together.
And how long did you have together?
8 years.
8 years. So in this time, the girls had obviously developed quite a bond with him as well.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
And how long, sort of before he died, had you known he was going to die?
Didn't. I never. Do you know what? Some people have asked me that. I mean, the hospital knew, the staff, you know, they all knew that eventually, but everybody battled for him. Everybody battled, because it wasn't cancer. It wasn't, you know, something that he had a very rare condition called amyloidosis. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
No.
I mean, I'd never heard of it either. I mean, I've been in nursing donkey's years and never heard of it. But it's like a protein. If you get an infection, it's like this protein is released, and then it kills certain organs. And his were always his kidneys. So when I met him, he'd already had a kidney transplant. So in fact, the thing he was most embarrassed about was this herniated fistula site, which was on his wrist.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to him, "Oh, so what's that?" You know, and he was like, because and actually he knew himself, I think, that he would eventually not be here anymore. But
right.
I always had hope that, you know, that he would always get better and come home, and but he didn't that time. And yeah, but I did feel very much that he flew free of his body.
Really?
Absolutely, I do. I almost felt it. Yeah.
Wow. Did he die at home or in a hospice? In hospice?
hospital.
In hospital.
Yeah,
Bless you.
with ironically, so she was a nurse. So there's a nurse that we called our angel nurse, and she had known Rob longer than me.
Oh.
She'd actually been one of his district nurses originally, and then she'd become a sister on the renal ward, and she didn't do night duty. I mean, what was that all about?
Wow.
You know, she actually came on the night shift.
Oh.
Had no idea. No idea.
Wow,
at all.
that's mad, isn't it? So you felt like he had quite a peaceful releasing death almost.
Yeah, definitely.
And
He died literally in my arms, and
oh, bless you.
you know, it was very, very peaceful. Yeah, that set me on my journey really of grief.
And how did you sort of navigate that for yourself? Obviously you'd lost Richard at this point. I mean, you know, not comparing because every loss is different, but had you learned anything from Richard's death that could sort of you could use to reflect upon here?
I don't know whether I could compare the two really, because
No.
I do feel that the grief I suffered, I think I always say this, with great love comes great grief. And I really went on a journey of grief myself.
Yeah.
I think with the girl, I think with Richard, it was more, I went on that journey with the girls more than myself. This was my own journey, and the girls were, it was like they came on the journey with me, and I mean, they absolutely adored Rob, don't get me wrong, and you know, they grieved his loss, but I think I certainly experienced every single emotion I could possibly. I think any, you know, I think it's important to explore all of those emotions, and I think, you know, as they come along, you know, and also to allow yourself to eventually, you know, because now, I mean, we're 10 years on now, and I would say it took me a good 6-7 years to really, you know, begin to find who on earth I was, you know, again.
Yeah.
You know, who am I?
Yeah.
You know, in all of that.
How did you go about discovering that?
Well, I think my dog Ben started it. He got me out of the house on walks. He busted his cruciate ligament on Friday night. Poor Ben. So we're just going on walks around the garden at the moment, because he's 10 going on. He's 10 now. He slept with me every night. He slept with me last night actually, because Neil wasn't here.
Oh, so Neil's your third husband, and
yeah, honestly, everybody, honestly, in a million years I didn't think I'd ever get married 3 times.
No.
I'm not gonna, well, never say never, but I'm not gonna do it again. I couldn't face that. Poor Neil though, he, you know, oh dear, he's an I never ever again thought I would meet anybody as special as Rob, but I really have. I've been so blessed and so lucky, you know, to meet a man who is strong enough to withstand all of that stuff that we've been through, because, you know, it's like a bag, isn't it?
Yeah.
A very large bag.
It is.
And it's not a Louis Vuitton, is it?
No, it's not.
I don't know what kind of bag it is, but it's
like a
really
boulder
not
full of rubble.
I mean, he was in the army for 23 years, so I suppose he's got quite broad shoulders. You know, I suppose it would be like one of his army rucksacks.
Was it hard for you, sort of allowing yourself to love again after what you'd been through? Yeah,
100%. Yeah, and in fact, the person that introduced us, she was on such a mission, because she just knew that we would get on so well, and she knew that we both had been through a lot, and that we deserved to be so happy. And so she was very persistent, Karen, she was, but I was very resistant.
Yes.
I was like, no, this isn't happening. And then in the end, resistance is futile with this particular person. So so it's quite funny, really. But yeah, I know, I would say I think it's very easy to miss probably meeting somebody else or allowing yourself to love again, because it's you know, when you've had that great love before, it can be a risk, can't it, in some respects, you know. But actually I'm really glad I took the you know, I did it, because I'm you know, I feel very, I just do, I feel very, very lucky. And yeah, you just got to be brave, haven't you?
I think so, and I think it's a journey in its own right, isn't it? Finding love again, it's not a cure-all or a solution to your heartache or your problems. It doesn't take everything away, and I do think it takes somebody very, very special. I really do, to open their heart to you and allow you to bring that bag with you, because you're not leaving it behind, are you? You know, that this has shaped who you are. These people are part of your journey, that there's still a relationship, there's still a connection there, that you know, it's not something you want to walk away from, it's something you want to carry forwards with you. And I think finding someone that respects that and honors that, it does take somebody very, very special with a huge heart, I think, to you know, for them. I don't think as much as I think it's difficult for us to navigate a new relationship, I think it's difficult for somebody, you know, wanting to create a relationship with us. I think it's hard for them, knowing where they fit in, how to
well, you can imagine Neil at the moment, because he's become a granddad, effectively. It's unlikely that he will be a granddad to, you know, his son. You know, if he has children, obviously that would be different, but it's unlikely. For him, it was just the other day, actually. Roman, he's 3.5 months old now, and Amy just gave him to him, and the next thing we knew, he was just chatting to him, and after he'd gone, he said he's got in there.
He's wormed his way in.
Yeah, he's there. And he was sitting there holding him the other day, and he was just like doing little jabs with his little hands, and they were having a bit of a laugh together. And yeah, it's really lovely. So he's going to be called Gramps.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah, well, he was going to be called Grumps, but yeah, I know, it's quite funny. Yeah, he's going to be called Gramps though. So I think Nanny and Gramps.
Or Nanny and Grumps on a bad day.
Yeah. But yeah, but yeah, you know, it does take somebody special, I think, to take on that role, and you know, to take it seriously, because you know, in all of that, I think any difficult situation, you know, it's how it's handled, it's who you meet on that journey, it's you know, it's you have to navigate it and be respectful, I think.
Yes, hugely respectful, and that's a big ask of someone, isn't it, really?
Well, I think we have to be respectful of them, and you know, I think the girls are more respectful of him now. I think they're beginning to realize how much, you know, he's given them. I mean, I tell you what, he didn't like, you know, we were saying about loving Polly. He wasn't loving her much at 4 o'clock one morning, picking her up out of the gutter after she'd come out of this nightclub. No.
But he was still there.
He was there. Yeah.
He was still there. So going back then to kind of, you know, you being a young widow after Rob had died, What about your grief? I mean, was there anything in it that surprised you, that you didn't expect? That, you know, I think we all have these ideas, perceptions of grief, whether we've suffered it or not suffered it, in terms of how we think we'll respond, how long it lasts, how it affects us, and all that kind of stuff. So we've got all these preconceived ideas almost. But for you, was there anything that you kind of didn't expect, or that took longer than you thought it would? What was it like for you?
Yeah, there's a couple of things that have just popped into my head. The first one was anger, because I think anger, I'm not an angry person at all. I'm just not. And I was so angry with somebody for about a year.
Really?
Oh my goodness. I was angry about something, you know, quite justified, but it went to another level, you know. You know, it just went to another level. And then it's a bit like with Polly, actually. Just one day she went to pick up the remote control, put it back down again, and that was it. She wasn't in that angry place anymore. I had a client actually whose daughter was exactly the same very recently, and she did the same thing. She didn't use remote control. I think it was something else, but but I think I was the same as well. I just one day suddenly it was like the mist cleared, and I didn't have that awful inside me anymore. And the second thing, I would say, because my younger brother died last year, I'd say last year was the first year that I genuinely felt really good, and I felt so great, and I was really on a, you know, with my work, everything was just going really, really well. And then my brother goes and dies in June, and that put me on another kind of, not, well, it gave me another experience, that's for sure. Because actually I've now learned that you can lose somebody and it can be a relief. But I had a lot to do with sorting, because I was his acting next of kin, and I had to sort a lot of his menagerie of birds out. Karen, I did.
Wow. Yeah.
They're all up the road, actually. They're all up here. And actually, what's really lovely, he had some lovebirds. That was just two of them, Rio and Kia. And they eventually, my mum and dad decided they couldn't keep them. And so they went to the aviary nearby where we live here. And they'd laid hundreds of eggs over years. They've now, no, but none of them had ever hatched. I went down there the other day and they said to me, Julie, you're a nanny again. I was like, what are you talking about? And they said, yeah, they said they've actually hatched 4 eggs. So there's like this, I don't know, there's just so many lovebirds in there now. And his quail are in there, and they've got his silky chickens in another area, and oh my goodness, yeah. So yeah, I feel as though I'm really back as me again now. And that feels really, really good, because I haven't felt like that for a very, very long time. I've been able to work for the last 3 years, and of course I wrote my second book, and but I'd say now I do feel as though things are, you know.
So what kind of kept you going in that time where obviously you know you'd lost your husband and you were trying to navigate that, start a new relationship, you know, and not really knowing who you were maybe a little bit at times? What was the driving force for you to kind of want to find happiness again and create something, even though it was taking so long? You know, because I'm sure with you and with me, I speak to many clients, and it's the length of time it takes in grief, isn't it? You know, and because it changes so much, it affects every corner of our universe, and we're different, our lives are different, and sometimes it can feel so overwhelming. we don't know where to start, and is it ever going to feel good, nice again? Like, you know who you are, and like you can say, do you know what, it's okay again. It's a different okay, but it's okay. For you, what kept you going in that to want to get to this point where it does kind of feel okay?
It's a really good question. I think it is literally just putting one foot in front of the other. I think and then realizing that sometimes you're going to go backwards, and that, you know, but eventually the sun will shine again. And it's allowing yourself to recognize the little glints of sunshine coming through, isn't it? And then, you know, that gets brighter, and then all of a sudden you're, you know, like, okay, it's really strange that I've come out here actually to Hope HQ to do this, because I was going to stay inside because of the dog, but then I thought, actually, the dog's, you know, anyway, I just thought, no, I'm going to come out here. You know, I look out here at, you know, I'm going to look now. You know, what more could I want, really? You know, what more could I want? And got the girls nearby, you know, they're happy, you know, but it has taken a long period of time. But I think it's just about allowing yourself to go on that journey. You can't go under it, you can't go around it, you can't go over it. In the end, you have to go through it. You can't avoid it.
Yes.
And the more you try and avoid it, the longer it takes.
Yes.
And, you know, and you have got to find the right person to help you on that journey. If that's what it, you know, takes. You know, it's friends, it's all sorts of things. You know, it's learning about, you know, what you need. And I suppose that's what I've done all the way through, you know, and, you know, that's why I'm able to kind of do what I do now, and you know,
support others.
It's
in terms of your experiences with loss. I mean, I always think that they teach us a lot about many things. For you, what would you say your biggest sort of learnings have been through your experiences of loss?
How strong we are as human beings, I think. You know, but we are human. We are only human after all, aren't we?
We are.
You know, and we do all have needs, and physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, if you want to go down that road. I do. I think my faith actually, I think, has helped me, you know, a lot on that journey. But I think if you can learn, and I think learning what you need and giving yourself those things, it helps on that journey.
Yes. And I love that, Julie, because I think you're so right. You know, I often say to people, you've almost got to unlearn everything that you knew up to that point and relearn a different way, because I think you experience the world in a very different way afterwards, and it's discovering what that way is for you. You know, what works, what feels good, what brings you some comfort, some joy, some hope, and kind of, you know, you've got to try different things, haven't you, to find that. And it's not always easy. The answers don't come quickly, but like you say, small steps taken sort of consistently over time lead to great big leaps, don't they? And we can find new ways of being and creating something meaningful. But you've got to kind of keep going,
and also allowing yourself to stop every now and again to enjoy the view.
Yes.
You know,
do you know, I don't think I've ever had...
that's what I've done just now. To be honest, I'm just
looking, and I just stop take a breath, you know, and because sometimes the road does seem long, doesn't it? You look ahead and the road just seems so long and overwhelming and bumpy and treacherous and stormy, and you know, and it's like in those moments when you think you can't go on, I always kind of say, just stop, just breathe, and just take a look at where you are and recognize that, appreciate that, you know, however hard it is, and then start again when you can. It's a balance, isn't it, I think, of both.
Yeah.
So obviously all of this now, you've sort of touched on your books a little bit, Julie, and the fact that, you know, what you do. What I mean, how can people find you? How do you support people? How can they get your books? What are your books? What do they offer? I mean, I've heard great things about them, read some lovely reviews, so that people can find them for themselves.
Yeah, so the best thing to do is to go to my website, to be honest, which is julienew.co.uk. And now there is a shop on there. So you can go to the shop and you can buy the books there. They come gift wrapped, which I just think it's really important that they arrive nicely. So anyway, so yes, the stuff's gift wrapped, and the comfort boxes that we're creating they include a copy of my book. They've got a plaque which usually has a message in. We can personalize those, so that's really nice. Yeah, we've got a baby loss comfort box now called Olivia Grace, because in the Grief Garden Path there are 9 stories, and the loss of a loved baby is Olivia Grace. So Sarah, we asked if her permission to call the box after her. So yeah, we've got the Pink Rose comfort box, and we've got a Forget Me Not box, and yeah, it's nice. I'm really proud of those, because I just think sometimes people just don't know what to say, do they? No. And actually it's a really lovely thing, you know, whether it's a year on or, you know, when somebody's bereaved, because the thing with this is that you can just keep it close. It's not something you just read and you put on the shelf. You can it's a coffee table gift book, so you know, you can just pick it up as and when you can ask it a question. Should we ask it a question? Hang on.
Ask it a question.
Okay, I'll ask it a question. Right, what do we want to know? Oh, that's interesting. So there's golden nuggets of wisdom shared by each person, and this particular person is Ian. So he says, talk to someone you trust. Open that Pandora's box. It must come out eventually. He says, probably talk to someone sooner than I did. Although, as Julie says, it must be the right time to open the box and begin talking about things. Exercise has helped me both physically and mentally. It could help you. Keep something that means something to you related to your loved one. And then he just talks about his brother's toy soldiers, which I had illustrated for him. And then there's Amy's story as well. So I think, yeah, I mean, there's blogs on my website. There's you know, information about the work that I do one-to-one with people, and I'm doing more and more work in the workplace as well, so with wellbeing in the workplace.
So important.
Yeah,
so important.
So yeah,
well, that's wonderful. Your story is incredible. You've come such a long way, and I know what you do now just means so much to so many. You know, I hear so many wonderful things. I read so many good things, and obviously, just knowing you, I know what a beautiful soul you are. You sent me a card, I think, after the first time we spoke, reminding me to look after me and water my own garden, and I always keep that close by, and I often think of you, Julie, so it really does help. You know, your words do stick. Before we go, what would your golden nuggets of wisdom be to a widow struggling with her grief right now, what would be your little sort of just to help them through a little?
Give Karen a call.
I love it.
And then eventually come and see me.
Yes.
No, in all seriousness, you know, it's finding, it's genuinely finding what it's reaching out, and it's finding something that's going to help you. And you know, and I would say, if you know, if somebody's very newly bereaved, you know, the really real basics: eat, sleep, breathe, repeat. And the watering you know, there's a whole chapter in the Grief Garden Path all about that. And you know, there's so much help out there. So don't think you're on your own either, because you're really not.
You feel like it, don't you? You feel very, very alone in it, even if you're surrounded by people. But you're right, there is support out there, and wherever you know, you want to find that feels right. I agree with you. We cannot heal in isolation. We're not meant to do these things on our own. And I think, you know, it's through our connections with others, and whether that's people you've already got in your life, or you need to find your support group, your tribe, or, you know, then get out there, find them, connect with people. And like I say, you may not find them straight away, but just by going through the process of looking, you will eventually get to the person that you need to get to. So Julie, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today, and your words of wisdom. I'm sure it would have helped so many. And I will put all your details on the show notes, so that people can find you there. But obviously your website has got it all, and that's julienew.co.uk.
Yeah,
brilliant.
And on social media.
Yes.
And if anybody could just follow the Grief Garden Path, I've got different platforms for it, because I've got a bit of a mission. I've got a bit of a goal with that, because I just want it to reach as many people as possible. So it's really important to me that it does that. So and a donation goes to the Good Grief Trust from the book. So any sale.
Lovely. And that's the Grief Garden Path on Instagram, is it? Okay.
On Instagram and Twitter now, only from yesterday.
Brilliant.
And also Facebook.
Fab. Okay. Bless you, Julie. Thank you so much again. And I'm sure we'll hear from you again very soon.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you.
Bye-bye.